Hello and welcome to Rare Cuts Media Society, the podcast that looks at hidden media gems, but we're all out of bubblegum. With your host, as always, I'm Andrew Jagoda. With me, we've got Mike Ross. How are you today, Mike?
I'm doing all right. I don't have any bubble gum. Do you?
Nope.
No bubble. Oh, then we only have one option then, right?
Yeah, but we're family friendly. We can't say it. And of course,
sure you can.
The man encouraging us to do evil, Rob Lachik. How are you today, Rob?
I'm very, very good. I'm ready to talk about some alien evildoers taking over Roddy Piper's world.
That's right. And Eric Hathorn, how are you today, Eric?
Pretty good. I started not seeing my favorite advertisements today, though. Everything just says Obey for some reason. And like the company Obey, I mean, they must be loving that. But, I didn't think they advertised. But, yeah.
All right.
It's these glasses, I guess.
With all of those hints, I guess I'll take it away. We're continuing our arc with Rowdy Roddy Piper movies. And this month's my pick, and I went with the 1988 classic, They Live. So with our current arc, we took a look at Hell Comes to Frogtown, which was from early 1988, but They Live was from late 1988, so we're still pretty early in his career. They Live was based on the 1963 short story 8 O'Clock in the Morning by Ray Nelson. It was written and directed by John Carpenter, stars Rowdy Roddy Piper, Keith David, and Meg Foster. Carpenter met Roddy at WrestleMania 3 and decided he'd be the perfect choice for the lead role. Meanwhile, Carpenter had already worked with Keith David on The Thing, and specifically wrote the role of Frank for him. They Live follows an unnamed homeless man, but the credits list him as Nada, and other material gives him the first name John, played by Rowdy Roddy Piper, that is looking for work. He meets Frank, played by Keith David, while working a construction job. But then Frank takes him to a colony of homeless people where he's invited to stay, but he soon discovers that some of the people at the camp have a weird secret work going on at the church across the street involving sunglasses. The police raid the church and camp, while Nada takes a box of sunglasses. He soon discovers that those sunglasses reveal the true rulers of the world are aliens keeping the poor under their control with subliminal messaging, and that there is a resistance movement trying to fight back. Now, rather than go through all the rest of the movie and ruin all of the surprises,
I have one question to just kick this off before we get into it. Did any of you actually watch the match from WrestleMania 3?
No.
Mike did, I'm sure.
that was extra credit beyond what I even thought of.
Did anyone look at Roddy Piper's tax returns from 1988?
No, I only looked at him from 89. Sorry. I'm 1 year late.
The thing is apparently there was a feud leading up to WrestleMania 3, and I don't know exactly what John Carpenter saw that made him like, yeah, that's the guy. But it was a haircut match. It was Roddy Piper versus Adrian Adonis, and whoever lost would get clipped.
Oh no.
So Piper, it was his retirement match actually, because before he did They Live, at the time, WWE, WF, whatever, they were very much like, yeah, we don't want you to go do Hollywood stuff. We want you to be part of our brand, and we own you, and we'll find you work. But he wanted to go out on his own, and that's kind of what came about. And it was his retirement match, was like, I want to go do film. That was what he was aspiring to do. And so that was his retirement match, and he pulled off the win and clipped Adrian Adonis's hair. So
nice. Little parting gift.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that John Carpenter in his interviews said that he saw him as looking like a working class kind of guy, beat up looking, not the, super pretty Hollywood boy. But other than that, I couldn't say as far as what happened at WrestleMania. I think it was, I'll segue into that somehow. I think it was a little bit more important to John Carpenter to comment on Reaganomics, and that the film was a direct critique of that and high commercialism in general. So I'll start us off with the question: what did you think of that social commentary of the movie? Was it too much for a good action movie, or does it stand up today? And we'll go random and say, Eric, how about you first?
I think the social commentary was the best thing this movie had going for it. Like that, I like the concept. I like the idea. It like, good dystopian, future film. Like there's so many good ones that I know we've enjoyed and we'll probably talk about later, but like a good dystopian film, like it kind of hit some of the marks of like the premise was there for me. I like the social commentary. I think I would have liked more. I would like more in like the backstory and development of like things. Some things left me with a lot of questions. So I'm going to say I could have used more of the social commentary. And I'll put it that I think it stands up today with some tweaking, but I like that part of it. I'll stand on that. I'll die on that hill.
Since you mentioned it, the story that this is based on, 8:00 in the morning, I read it. It's only like 5.5 pages long. And to think that they made a 2-hour movie out of that kind of gives you the idea that they cut a lot, or, I mean, they added a lot, I should say.
Yeah.
But
even more so. Don't forget, there was
what's that?
I'm sorry, don't forget, there was a 10-minute fight scene over wearing a pair of sunglasses. So they did have a little filler, if you will, there.
That did go on too long. I totally agree. They could have put more backstory in for about 7 minutes there and only had like a 3-minute fight scene.
They spent 3 days recording that one scene.
And that was my point I was going to make, was that the story had no backstory. It's that short because he summarized 90% of what you would think would be in a story like this. I like vintage sci-fi stuff, but it's very, very difficult when it's so summarized to think of it as a good story. So I'll talk more about that as we go on, but Mike, what about you for the social commentary on this?
I mean, I have to agree with Eric. It's honestly the most intriguing aspect of the whole film. I mean, I think that's the whole point of it. The action is just more or less, how do we kind of cater to bring in some sort of crowd, and have some clips for the commercial to see if people will be interested in this action film. It's an action film, but it's mostly about the social commentary. I think my frustration is kind of, again, lining up with Eric's, where it's a really cool premise. It's a lot of fun and interesting and says a lot about our society as a whole. And I feel like it just kind of like fell apart pretty quickly. Like, oh, he wakes up, he sees a couple signs, sees this magazine. I know what I got to do now. I got to stop this. I need to destroy everything. It's like, I think you could really play up, because there's the people who are, they know what is happening, and yet they are participating and aiding the alien colonists, basically, in what they're doing. And we get kind of a little hint of that, but I think you could expand upon that. The people that are trying to justify why they're supporting them and why it's to their benefit. And there's a lot of social comedy right there, but it just gets kind of glossed over. Fun idea, fun premise. I think it could be executed much better.
And going back to the story again, so you mentioned like how he wakes up to it. In the story, literally, it's just he's at a hypnotist, and the guy says awake, and instead of like everybody else, he fully awakes.
Oh.
That's how they explain it. Is oh well, those people they all woke up like normal, but you actually woke up to everything.
So it's kind of like office space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When did the story come out? Can I ask?
63.
I was going to say it's got to be from the 60s, right? Because I feel like it's got that, like when you described the hypnotist and he fully awoke, it's kind of like that, like the whole counterculture thing of like advertising is the man, and and it's like really throughout time, like because like the alien things or whatever they are like keeping us down with advertising and magazines and TV and all the media that we consume, and it like that, like it's a thing, like advertisers in TV and if you're watching this on YouTube, they all use the psychology of like what is going to make you look at this longer and think about this more. And that's what we're going to lock into so that we can't. So like there's like that's happening.
Yeah.
It's like TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Like people say like they'll open up TikTok and then like hours later they'll be like, oh, 5 minutes ago I opened up. What the hey? What time is it? Kind of thing.
To your point, I mean those apps are reading everything you do. So if you spend half a second longer on a video than you were any other video, they say, oh, there was something there that's engaging. Okay, let's see if we send him another one, see if we can get him to slow down and view it a little bit longer. So it's the social commentary is more prevalent for today's generation, I think, than ever before, because we have advertising bombardment every day of our life.
Yeah.
I agree with Mike and Eric on this being the best part of the film, the social commentary piece. Just in general, I will say I would have a suggestion that I think would have been more believable, but it wouldn't have been as entertaining from a visual eye, is instead of putting on the sunglasses, because like to change like a picture or like an image or something to like text when you look at it with glasses, obviously it was a visual thing to see and understand. I would have been an interesting concept if it was like an ear implant or something, and you could actually hear what was being said, say on the TV or some sort of audio instead of the visual aspect of it. I think it almost seemed comical, or like he would like, I mean, maybe that was part of the point, right? But he's like looking at an image of like a lady on a beach somewhere, and then he puts the sunglasses and it says the word obey or something like that.
Reproduce.
I mean, it's kind of like, like, or something. Yeah. Some other, like just a single word or a phrase or something. I'm like, but it would be interesting if like somebody was saying something in a commercial and like he hit his earpiece and it would say like, eat more Rice Krispies or something. Hey, Rice Krispies, not a sponsor. But like something like that, or to like kind of drive some other like hidden message. I thought it would have been a little bit more believable. This just seemed kind of a little more out there, in my opinion. But overall, the commentary of what it was getting at, I think, was a very interesting concept. I think it could have just been done a little bit better if it was done maybe in an audio way instead of visual way.
Yeah. Again, I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, for any of the things that we have watched and reviewed, this one you could do a remake and really expand upon it and take it to the next level.
Yeah, and we'll get to that question later about remakes.
Willem Dafoe.
Oh my God, no!
Wait for it. So, as I said earlier, the movie actually never names Roddy Piper's character, which is odd in that, of course, it's based on a short story, and they actually in the credits put his last name is the same one from the short story. But also a little interesting twist for you is that in the short story, his name is George, and John Carpenter decided to name him John, which might be interesting. At least to me, it was interesting that they did that for a certain reason. But I wanted to know your thoughts as far as him not even being named by anybody. What did you think of that? Or did you even catch on to that?
I didn't catch on to it because I frankly, I looked at the cast and I saw, oh, that's what his name is. And like in my head, it was already programmed. But now hearing that makes sense, because if Carpenter's whole thing with this film was I want like an everyday person, kind of, I think that's the point. Is it's just this could be anyone, doesn't have a name, and it could be anyone on the street that just wakes up one day. So it makes it so that any viewer watching the film could be like, oh, this could be me. I could be the one waking up and realizing that trickle down economics is not a thing.
Correct. And yeah, I mean, like I was saying with changing it from George to John, I mean, how more generic can you be than saying, oh, it's John, it's everybody, and yet nothing.
I thought he chose John instead of Paul or Ringo, but George, John, no.
They should have had Ringo start.
So I was a little bit different than Mike. I did realize that they didn't name him. Mm-hmm. It was about halfway through the film, because I was taking my notes and I was going. I was like it was one of the quotes where, and we'll get into that later, but like one of the quotes I wanted to like write down. Oh, he said this. I'm like, wait, what was his name? And I had to like think about it. Like, wait, did they ever say his name? And like I looked it up on, I don't know, IMDb or Wikipedia, whatever it was, and like nada. I'm like, I don't remember them saying that. I remember the word name Frank, but I'm like, I can't remember that. And so then like the rest of the film kept going, and I'm like, they never say his name.
Yeah.
But it was only because I was trying to write down some zingers that he said and make sure I knew it was him. But other than that, interesting. I didn't pick it up other than that though too. So kind of similar to Mike.
I have a completely different experience from the both of y'all. And I think it comes to just something about my brain, which is I am terrible at like names in general. And I will frequently describe someone on TV. Well, if someone introduces themselves to me in real life, I am like, I'm going to remember this person's name. And then they tell me, and I'm like, oh, man, I just forgot it. And I don't even remember what it is. Like immediately. I have to do so many times. But like when we watch a TV show or a movie or whatever, I'm just like, the guy with the hair? Yeah, that one. He was the friend. I never know anyone's name in most movies until like I finish it and then like take a conscious effort to do it, or I'll just refer to them as their actor name, like as well. Like, look at that, Roddy Piper. Like my brain just like that. So I did not realize that I noticed his name was Nada at the end, but I never realized they didn't say it. And then I didn't realize it was like a whole thing until. So that's my story. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I noticed it when he goes, oh, I'm Frank. And then there's no mention like, oh, hey, my name is. It's, that whole like, he's volunteering information. And then Roddy Piper is just like the silent.
I'm not saying anything.
He's like Buster Keaton sitting there. So, and then to back it up, when I looked it up, I'm like, I hope that's Nada and not like Nada, you know. So I'm like looking into it more, and I'm watching the movie, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, they don't say it. So that was, to me, that's very striking. But also having read the story and seeing that they changed it to John, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, just the everyman.
Well,
means nothing.
John Carpenter.
Well, and again,
John Carpenter.
John Nada. It's basically John Nothing, right? I mean,
yes.
So
yes.
No one.
No one, nothing, nobody. So, you know, with the media, there's been a lot of times that this kind of commentary, critique on commercialism and well, to a lesser extent, Reaganomics, but our perceptions of the world have been done. It's been done to death over the decades in different forms. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Were there any movies, shows, songs, theories, thoughts that when you were watching They Live, it kind of reminded you of those other things?
So the one movie, there are two movies that came. Well, first movie that came to my mind when I was watching it, when they talked about how the aliens like come to the planet and like take everything, it was, I mean, and not at all related to the social commentary of it, was Independence Day. Not the same one, Eric.
No, you were going down the thing, and then it wasn't, and then it wasn't. So I'm gonna hold mine off then instead.
Okay.
But I get you, Independence Day. But Independence Day is so blatant of the alien.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there's no, I mean, the social commentary is not at all in that film, right? But like the way that they just kind of explained it was like, oh, they just come to the planet and they take all the resources, and it was like, I can't remember what part of that film, but I think it was, who was the guy who played the president in Independence Day?
Bill Pullman,
where he's like, they come to Earth and they take everything, and then he's like, nuke the bleep word. But that came to my mind, like one of the first like similar movies. The one now that we're talking, which is, it has definitely it's social commentary written all over it, and done obviously very well. V for Vendetta, which is also kind of interesting because his name is V. Like, what is his name? You never know, right? So kind of in this one, his name is Nada, or is it John? No, don't really know. But
yeah,
the Independence Day one, totally unrelated from the social commentary, but like some of the alien aspects definitely popped up in my head.
I could see that. Mike, what about you?
I think my mind goes to older films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just you're being replaced by these other beings. So I kind of got those vibes a little bit, but then there's other movies that aren't very good too, like the Arrival with Charlie Sheen, where the aliens have always been here or have been here for a long time previous, and he thought that he was going to be trying to prevent something. And yeah, so I don't know.
Okay. All right, Eric, what about you?
So I had a bunch of them. I'm shocked that we didn't have that much crossover. I thought Rob was going down my first path. Like the first one that hit me that this reminded me of
Mars Attacks.
Not even Mars Attacks. Come on. I didn't even think of that one. I was thinking of Buckaroo Banzai.
There you go.
Yeah, you have those like the shapeshifter John Lithgow and Christopher Lloyd are those aliens that are like shapeshifters, and you could almost look at something like that, like if Buckaroo Banzai didn't stop them aliens and they took over the Earth, this is what would have happened, kind of thing. So that one popped in my head right away too, because it's like at the same time as this, it's in the same lane, and they're very similar, and I love that movie. The other one, I mean, I thought of The Matrix, of course, like that whole like wake up thing. The Matrix hit me with that one. And then this is one that you might, I kind of got some vibes from it that Jagoda, you actually introduced me to. It was another one of those kind of like wake up kind of situations, was a Brazil.
Ah, yes.
kind of had, that was one you introduced me to way back when, and let me borrow your Criterion Collection DVD back when those were the
only Criterion I own.
Is it?
Yeah.
But like it had, and the crazy thing about it is like all of us had totally different things, and all of us were right. You know, because like you said, it has been done a lot.
And I just want to say that I started watching. I just restarted watching X-Files last night randomly, and like the first couple episodes, it's like, man, this could be like the prequel, or this is what happens if John Nada failed to awaken people. And you just have a couple people that are out there believing, and they're trying to expose it and figure it out with the shadow governments, which could be the people that are trying to hold them down and cover it up. And it's like, yeah, it was the right time to start X-Files again.
The one other thing, which is I thought it was kind of humorous when, I think, I can't remember, at some point they mentioned like the phrase "New World Order." Some point in the film. And what it made me think, I'm like, wait a second. So he's fighting this New World Order. Wait, did he ever have a feud with NWO? And he did in the mid-90s.
I watched that too.
Like, he's just smart too.
Ooh, that's hilarious.
Oh my God.
No, I just had another.
Yeah.
I was going to say I had another one hit me that it's kind of like a reverse. I'm going to make it the reverse. The reverse of it here is Suburban Commando. I had written down Suburban Commando from what we had watched before because they used the same like Ghostbusters instrument. It popped up again. You saw that too, Mike?
I'm having a note of that. Yeah,
so did I. So when I was like Ghostbusters thing, Suburban Commando, and now as I'm thinking about it, Suburban Commando has a lot in common with this, but it's like, because it's still like that I'm the odd man out thing, but it's like done the opposite way. Like instead of him being like the only like awake one, you have like Hulk Hogan and Suburban Commando is like the fish out of water in the suburban area. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's some that's a loose one, but the Ghostbusters thing's legit. I'm glad you saw that too, Mike.
That is. I didn't think of that. But for me, I did see the Matrix connection, like you were saying. I saw Mike's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's another movie that I don't know how many people saw it, because if they had, they might have thought The Matrix was kind of dumb, and they didn't. They liked The Matrix. But Dark City, which had Kiefer Sutherland and I forget who else, but it was a year before Matrix came out, and it wasn't the same plot, but it had a lot of the same elements of the, awake from the fake reality and all of that.
I just looked it up, and that Dark City, I remember previews for it, and I got vibes of like Hellraiser from it. But
I remember that poster at the video rental place.
Yeah, me too.
It was a very, hence the name, I guess. It was a very dark movie.
Go figure.
But so maybe it was the fact that The Matrix did it a little bit prettier, but also had more action, as I recall. It's been a long time since I saw Dark City. But another one this is kind of reaching out there, but there's a lyric from Joni Mitchell that made me think of this movie. Which is, I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's a life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all. Which is very much how things are with everyone in the world in this movie, except for Nada. And then there's this is really going out there, because this is going like philosophy style.
Dang.
But Plato had the allegory of the cave, which was that these prisoners are lined up. They can see one wall. They can't see the wall behind them or anybody that walks behind them. And everything that they see is just the shadows from the light behind them. So if somebody held up a rubber duck and said, this is what a duck is, they would only know the duck as being that shadow and not the actual object. But then on top of that is that, and I'm going to connect this eventually, don't worry.
I think you're connecting it already. I'm aware.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, I got you.
On top of this is the idea that if suddenly the prisoners were let go and they went out into the world and saw that duck, they'd have no idea. And somebody'd say to them, well, that's a duck. They'd say, no, it's not. I know what a duck looks like. So they would defend the illusion that they've been given, which, going back to what you guys were saying about that 10-minute fight scene, makes it make sense, because Keith David's character would not want to give up his illusion. When he's in the camp, he's telling him, leave it alone. And I have a quote here. I got to find it. He says,
just put the damn sunglasses on.
Right.
He's arguing with him and said, he who has the gold makes the rules. I'm walking a white line. I don't bother nobody. Nobody bothers me. But, Nada challenges him and says, well, the white line's the worst place to drive. It's the middle of the road. So he's challenging him, but Keith David, Frank, he doesn't want to challenge his view. He just wants to go through life, get what he wants. He doesn't want to go there. So then when he's telling him, put the glasses on, he's fighting for his illusion. And he fights like hell for it. Now, of course, the fact that it's 10 minutes is because John Carpenter had a wrestler in the cast and said, we got to have a fight scene and we got to use his wrestling knowledge. But it makes sense that they fight really hard. And that's my argument right there.
I would have liked less fighting there and more little fighting throughout, though.
This is the only time I will ever use Plato to argue a fight scene.
No.
And I'm pretty sure it might be the only time anyone's ever done that.
I was with you until you talked about the fight scene, honestly. No. But no, 10 minutes too long. It should have been shorter.
It wasn't 10 minutes. It was just under 6.
Still, cut it in half. 3 would have been fine.
10.
3.
I think I made a comment in my notes. I was like, feels like a third of the movie's been this fight scene.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
And I mean, the fight scene itself had to happen. I agree. That struggle was real, but it didn't have to happen that way.
Mm.
Yeah. And I just have to say about Keith David and Frank real quick. This is my Disney thing here. Just like Dr. Facilier, now he's got friends on the other side. Because he was Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog.
Well, what I would say about the fight scene is, like, maybe they duke it out for like a minute, and then Roddy Piper gets up, he holds up his wad of cash that Frank brought to him for his pay. Be like, look, you can just keep this. You can take it. Just put these sunglasses on. That's all I want. Toss him the money. Because Frank is someone who is after the money. And at this point, Nada is under the impression that, the subliminal message, what it says is, this is your God on all the money. So he knows that what's the point of doing any of this and obeying and falling in line? I'm awakened. So I'm going to give him what he values the most, which is money, to just put on the sunglasses.
Oh, shoot. That ruins my Play-Doh.
Motivation. No. That money motivation.
Shoot.
I'm with you on the shadows, though, because that's totally relevant. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
And that just makes me think, and this is a segue, so you can cut this, but that makes me think of like when early like paleontologists and people that would find fossils of bones from dinosaurs period, they would draw all these sketches of what they thought it looked like, but they were way off. They weren't even close because they didn't understand like the musculature, the how the fat would be held on the bodies. And so like if you see like a hippopotamus skull, you can see how they drew that. It's not even close. So to your comment about the people in the cave, that's spot on. I mean, and so when you try to awaken someone, and it explains a lot with what's going on in our world currently, where it's like you can see issues, you can understand the facts and the science behind everything, and you can try to open someone else's eyes, but if they are unwilling to, they will double down and they will fight you for 6 minutes in an alleyway.
10 minutes.
We're gonna call it 10.
I'll see you up at
round up.
All right. Well, so moving on from that, of course, the point of this arc of our episodes is to look at the career of Rowdy Roddy Piper. So I want to know from you guys, how do you think Roddy did performing in They Live compared to Hell Comes to Frogtown? Was this a better B movie, a better movie in general, worse? How did it stack up?
Well, since I started this whole craziness with Rowdy Roddy Piper, I will go first. So I think it's hard to compare because they are two very different roles. In Hell Comes to Frogtown, it definitely has more of a campy, silly vibe to it. And this is really meant to be, it's a much far more serious type of film. And some parts can be goofy or look kind of weird or whatever, but obviously the plot and the messaging behind it is far more serious than Hell Comes to Frogtown, where he has to procreate with all these ladies, and he's like, right? I mean, like those kind of things, like that really didn't come up. There was no like goofiness from Roddy Piper in this film. So I think it's kind of hard to compare, but I'll say this. Between the two, I think it shows that he has a little bit of dynamics in his capabilities as an actor, to be a little silly, to fill into like I don't want to say a serious role, but a more subdued role, kind of quieter, introspective type of role versus just being silly or like he is in the wrestling world, crazy, yelling and jumping around like he does. So I think how did it compare? I don't know. It's kind of an apples to orange, but the apple was good. The orange was good. I enjoyed both.
Okay. I'll take that.
I guess where I struggle with that is like I feel like you can definitely judge the acting ability, and I find that in both films he has an ability to act specifically when it's under stress, pain, and violence. Again, you mentioned last time. Well, obviously he's good at those things because that is how you sell wrestling. And so that stuff all pays off and looks great. But I would say that his acting ability was better showcased in They Live, because you have moments where you have to be a little bit more somber and thoughtful rather than just like, yeah, Hell Comes to Frogtown. So, but where I struggle with him as an actor is anytime he opens his mouth, like you just get that very freshman acting dialogue. Like he is not able to be a natural dialogue speaker in an acting role. And that is where I think he struggled in both of the films and still struggles. So I'm still looking forward to maybe later we look at some other films down the line, see if that improves with time.
Yeah. I'm so going both out. Like I had an idea of what I wanted to say about this, and then y'all talked and it kind of shifted me different directions. But like basically where I was starting off is like I felt like his acting was consistent across both movies with like subtlety into the more serious role and then into the more campy role. where he camped it up a little bit more, and he brought it down a little bit. And I started to wonder how much of that is direction from the director, because if he had that consistency and he could camp it up or serious it down, how much is that? Is like, take 2, let's try it where you do this next time. But then like what you're talking about too, like he's definitely getting started at this, and acting and wrestling is very different because you kind of have two people or two types of people that you're trying to capture. You've got people in a arena who you have to be very like, if Andrew went Plato, I'm going to go back to ancient Greece too. And in like ancient Greece plays, you would be on the side of a hill and you'd have to project and you'd wear the masks and you'd have to have very big, gestures, actions, and that kind of stuff. And like wrestling's not dissimilar in that, the people who paid for the cheap seats in the arena are still going to have to see you and hear you, even though you might have a microphone. So you're going to have to really show that off. But then there's also a TV camera on you that you're acting for. So you kind of have that weird, like the movies are somewhere in the middle of both of those things that he's doing. So it's like, I can appreciate what he does across both movies, and his subtlety, if that's his, is pretty impressive for someone getting right into movies. But I agree with you, Mike. I want to see where he's going with this, and if it kind of improves, because we've only got like maybe a couple of months between the filming of these movies, so he hasn't grown as much as we would see over a long period of time. But comparing the two movies, this is kind of where I'm at with it. And maybe this is a preview of my score coming up later. I don't know. But like Hell Comes to Frogtown, like when we talk about these being like opposite, they're not necessarily opposites because they're both B movies, sci-fi B movies, but they kind of yin yang in a way that like Hell Comes to Frogtown is a terrible, ridiculous concept for a movie. And because it starts out here, what they do with it makes it greater than its beginning point. And I'm going to say, on the other hand, like They Live has a great concept. And because of what they don't do with it, it doesn't hit the mark I wanted it to hit. So like, I don't know what I can say if it's better or worse at this point, because one of them, it's kind of like they start out here and they go, and they kind of even out because of their strengths and deficiencies that are in different places.
Yeah, for me, I could see that kind of saying that it's like They Live is a better movie, but
100%.
Hell Comes to Frogtown is a better B movie. It follows, like I said in our last episode, like the tenets of being a B movie. Hell Comes to Frogtown hits them on the head, whereas most movies don't really try to do that. And whether they did try or not, Hell Comes to Frogtown hit them on the head. So if you look at it strictly from a B movie standpoint, I could totally see argued that Hell Comes to Frogtown is better. But then when you take in the idea that, okay, it's John Carpenter, he was trying to be like a serious filmmaker, like then it's like, okay, yeah, you kind of go here and then it kind of goes down a little bit because of not hitting those marks.
Yeah. And I mean, within the first, like the opening credits, where we're only like a minute or two into this film, I had already written down better filmmaking, just than, Hell Comes to Frogtown, just the cinematography, the shots, how they're lined up. You can tell it's someone who is more traditionally trained in making a movie, like an actual film. It's very apparent. And I have a question, and that is, do you think it would have been better if he had gone with one of his original thoughts of who to cast instead of Roddy Piper, and that was Kurt Russell? It was one of the people in consideration. And the only reason he didn't do it is because he's been using Kurt Russell a lot. He had him in The Thing, which is a remarkable movie. I love that movie. Do you think it would be better with like a main lead that's a known commodity like Kurt Russell over Roddy Piper, or do you think that actually hurts it?
I think it makes it better. Kurt Russell doesn't fight like, I mean, he does fight scenes, but he doesn't fight like, oh, now we need to put a 10-minute fight scene in this movie because he fights. So they could have filled that 10 minutes with something else. Also, Kurt Russell, of course, Disney royalty. So I got to go on with that. But also, I think, and I hate to say it because I enjoy Roddy Piper's performance, but I hate to say it, but I like that being said, to ask a question on your question, does Roddy Piper, is he the downfall of this movie in that case? He's like the poor man's Kurt Russell.
I feel like it is, just because again, every time he opens his mouth, he's telling me that he doesn't know how to act for film, to speak for film, and it would pull me out, be like, oh, he's not in the moment, he's not this actual person, he's just, his kind of wrestling persona comes out. That's who he's channeling when he talks.
So I'll add in, I gotta protect my guy Roddy Piper here. So, and Eric, you made a good point earlier of like where it's they started up here, right? A great concept, but then the choices that were made of like where the film went was the drawback. So I don't know if Kurt Russell would have made it better or not. Just way that the story and the way the film went, I don't know if it would have made it. The acting, I'm sure, would have been so much better, right? I mean, it's Kurt Russell again, protecting my man Roddy Piper, but Kurt Russell, Roddy Piper, actor, there's no comparison, right? Yeah. But I still think just the film itself, I don't know if it would have been rescued by one Kurt Russell. I don't know. Hard to say.
For me, where it would suffer, which we haven't talked about this and we should, is the one-liners. That basically John Carpenter said, okay, is there something you want to say? And he showed him, he had a list of all these things that he'd written down that he wanted to use for his wrestling interviews and never did. And that's where we get the greatest line ever about chewing bubblegum, is because he had it on his list. And I mean, and like saying, to one of the alien women, you look like your head fell in the cheese dip back in 1957. And then he points at the Asian lady, you're okay. Like, we wouldn't get that with a Kurt Russell. We would have some serious, like, acting moment, and not the be campy kind of fun lines that we get with Rowdy Roddy.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, there is something to be said there, where maybe this movie ends up being more forgotten than what it is. It would not have the cult following that it has today. And I will say this, Nicole wasn't interested in watching this movie, but she was there anyway. And so she laughed at the I'm all out of bubblegum line. But then the one that really got her, and you bleep me if you have to, but it was the line where he's like, life's a bitch and she's back in heat.
Yeah.
That's the one I wrote down when I couldn't figure out what his name was. That had to write down.
And Nicole just like could not stop laughing. She's like, that is ridiculous.
I do have to also mention the line right after the bubblegum, is that when the alien's on the radio, he's calling it in. He says, "Mama don't like tattletales."
Oh yeah.
See, those are the moments Kurt Russell couldn't pull off.
Well, and that's so. I think this is where I still struggle with it. So Hell Comes to Frogtown, I think the whole time was meant to be a B movie, and They Live was not.
It was an A movie that would have B moments.
So in my opinion, like this is the thing I'm gonna spin here. Like, to me, it's like if you had I'm gonna go Olympics. We have an Olympic, 400 meters or whatever, and you have this person is the favorite to win. They are a gold medal winning athlete, and they're on this, second lane. And this guy, he's just happy to be here because he's the first person from his country to make it here. He's just here to have fun. And what you have is the person who runs out there who's supposed to be favored to win, and they make fourth place. And that guy who was running for fun runs out there and he makes fifth place, which is even better than they ever expected he could do. Like, he will be celebrated in his country. Yeah. And the guy who got fourth place is going to be the laughing stock of his. That's
a
how
fair
I look
comparison. Yeah.
He didn't win. He didn't beat the guy who was favored to win either.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's like
but the failure will be felt more from the guy who lost.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Well, now it's time to talk about what Mike alluded to earlier. Remake. Do you think that it needs a more serious remake? Should it have a remake?
I don't know that it even needs to be more serious. I think with a little bit more time, a little bit less fight scene.
More fight scene.
Make it a 3-hour movie. You could have a 10-minute fight scene.
I think someone out there could pull this movie off and make it really great, because it's appropriate for the times that we're living in, because it kind of feels like we must be governed by some sort of alien cabal or something.
Mike's starting a conspiracy theory.
Don't be starting a conspiracy theories here.
My son today, he brought up to me, he's like, oh yeah, my friend was mentioning that he thinks that the world leaders are all reptilian people. I was like, oh my God.
Time to watch They Live.
No, right? That's where this idea originated from this movie. Oh God.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
So we have to. Well, Mike started to bring up Willem Dafoe. Who do you think he could have played well in this film? I have one role that I think he would have filled in very well. Gilbert.
That's the
guy who was like the leader of the colony.
The sunglasses, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I would even like to see him as like one of the big villain guys.
Ooh.
I think he could pull that off too, being one of the alien people.
He could be like a politician.
Yeah, or one like the news anchor or something like that. You know what I mean? He could pull off one of those too.
You know what? See, that's something. Because all of the people who are aliens, they're just kind of a random alien. You never really have like a singular antagonist who's an alien in the film.
That's what I'm talking about. We need that more backstory. Oh, I got another.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is, why was the alien at the newsstand buying their own propaganda?
Fit in.
Good point.
Okay.
Ooh.
Unless every third magazine,
maybe he just likes the pictures.
Every third one.
But so this is another question I had that goes along with that. Like and maybe y'all can explain it to me, but I still don't know if I'm going to like the explanation. The movie's called They Live, and I know it was like spray painted on the wall. Like, I don't get the title.
They get to live while we all sleep. The aliens get to live while we are all asleep and conforming and obeying.
Yes, I get. Like, I still think it's a dumb title.
I'm with Eric.
All right. Well, for the remake, what would you name it?
Kangaroo.
What would you name it for the remake?
I would call it Hell Comes to Frogtown. That's not true. I wouldn't call it that.
I'd watch that one again.
I'd call it The Matrix.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
If you rename the film, what could you rename it? Oh man, we need to have like a second episode for that just alone.
Just for us to think about that. Well, because I guess They Live. That's
no. Think about it.
The short story was called 8 o'clock
in the morning.
And
the reason is because in the story, he gets a phone call, and he already knows what they are, and he gets a phone call that's basically like lets him know that they know he's awake. And it's the police chief, and he says, "Repeat after me. You will die at 8 o'clock in the morning." And then he has to repeat back. And then, sure enough, next day, after he gets the revolution started, 8 o'clock in the morning, he drops dead.
I would call it, you just said the title, that I would call it Awake. Final answer.
Awake. Okay, Awake. I mean, I think that the 8 o'clock in the morning title could work, but it wouldn't draw a crowd. Like, it would work for the film, but nobody's going to go watch a movie called 8 o'clock in the morning. They're going to be like, nope. I mean, a short story, it was only 5.5 pages. I mean, easy to stick with, but a 2.5 hour movie, whatever, nobody's going to watch that. The title like that.
And because I have to, the thing that that drives me crazy with John Carpenter films is his need to be the composer. And so the music is just like, oh, please stop. And
keep going.
I had forgotten for a while, like the movie had gone on for a while with this like kind of like bass and mellow music just carrying on, and I was like, and then there'd be like a period with quiet, and then it would kick back in. I was like, oh no, it's the same song. And then I remembered, I was like, it's John Carpenter, because that's his thing. He likes music. And
you want to know the funny thing is that the collector's version that I borrowed from the library
has a CD.
It had interviews with him and Keith David and Meg Foster, and it used the music, and then specifically in the credits for the little interviews mentioned him as the composer for the music.
The very first note I wrote down is just, someone got a MIDI controller. That's all I wrote down.
Well, because
that's what it sounded like.
And not to knock him entirely, I mean, the music that he did for Halloween, great. I love it. It works throughout. It has suspense. It's eerie. But this film is just like, oh, please give me a break from this.
Yeah.
It was fatiguing.
I'm going to get Nicole to play it on repeat for you, Mike, in the house. Just randomly. Heavy bass lines.
Yeah, she's going to be like, I want to play this song and chew bubble gum, and we're all out of bubble gum.
Love that Roddy Piper.
All right. We got to score the scoreboard. So let me bring up. All right. So now we got to give They Live a score. And I have some score. Yeah.
If Rob wins again, we have no idea what wrestling legend he's going to pick next.
So, here's the thing about that too. There's one that I have, like, I still have a question in my mind. I'm like, I don't know what I want to put it as. I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna go with my let's do that though. Let's do that. I accidentally hit the wrong button, and now we're looking at the main score, but I meant to do that. I don't have problems with how I use this thing. That was on purpose. So Rob picked Hell Comes to Frogtown, and he's got 38 points. Now we're seeing what They Live is, and we're gonna figure out what I'm gonna pick next time. All right, so let's go back to our original one, and let me do The Right Thing here. I'm going to do The Right Thing. That's a different movie. Not a rare one, though. All right, So Rarity, I had heard. So this is the thing about They Live. I'd never seen They Live before, but I had heard of it. And I know, like, I knew all the names, like Roddy Piper, of course, he's the theme. Keith David, of course, he's Dr. Facilier, among other things. So many other things. He's been in so much. He's so recognizable. And then John Carpenter. So like, I was like, I know this one. I know it's a B movie. For Rarity, I gave it a 3. I had to give it I waffled on the 3, 4, or 5. Well, I didn't want to give it a 5. I was waffling on it there. For theme, I mean, if you pick a movie where Roddy Piper is the dude in the movie, like, I think we kind of like, there's not a reason to not give it a 5. So he's right on the money for theme, because, you know, he's Roddy Piper. Now, this is the one that I'm still waffling with, because it is, I am doing apples to oranges, and I'm still fighting with the it's being compared to Hell Comes to Frogtown, and I'm still fighting with it. Did I enjoy it more than I enjoyed Hell Comes to Frogtown? And it's that thing I talked about, because it is like they both tied for 4th or 5th or whatever and didn't make the podium, but one of them did a lot better than we expected it to, and the other one didn't do as well as I was hoping for. So that's where I still I'm gonna keep what I'm gonna put it at a 3 because of that fight scene. It was too long. We're going to go with it that way. So altogether, my score is an 11. Yeah.
I explained with Play-Doh.
Now, if you would have explained it with Play-Doh, like you pulled out the little yellow can and like
so here's the prisoner and here's the wall.
You build the little thing with Play-Doh, I might have gone with you more.
All right. So Rarity, I have heard of it. I haven't seen it, but I have seen a lot of the memes and commentary around it. And it's John Carpenter, well-known director. I gave it a 2. Theme, well, I mean, he's not really Roddy Piper. He's John Nada. So is he meeting the theme?
You're playing a dangerous game here.
And then enjoyment. This one I struggle with, just because if it had been Kurt Russell and it had been a little bit more thought out and more of that social commentary, I would definitely be giving this a 4, but I think I'm going to have to give it a 3.
Solid score, 10. All right, so my scores are going to look very similar to Mike's, because I agree. Rarity, 2. I've heard of the film. John Carpenter. I knew a lot of the look of the film, like with the sunglasses and everything. I didn't understand what it was about, but had heard of it. It wasn't a total like kind of out there type of film. Theme. Do we even need to talk? It's a 5. And then enjoyment. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. It's kind of one of those films where, I guess how I always think of enjoyment of a film or whatever type of media it is, if it's music, whatever. If I want to come back to watch it again, then I've really enjoyed it, because I like to rewatch films for what else could I see in it. I'd rewatch this film, but I'm not going to race again to watch it again, like within the next couple weeks. Where if it was a movie I really liked, I would do that. Be like, all right, I got to see this again. What did I miss? But I think I'd come back to this later after watching some other high quality Roddy Piper films. But I'd come back, but not really quick to this one.
All right. Well, it still did better than, Eric's Thanksgiving pick, so that's okay.
St. Elmo's Fire. St. Elmo's Fire is the bar of worst pick ever. And keep in mind, that's not even a B movie. That's an A movie. So the more
that could be a whole theme. Is the goal is to shoot for lower score than
the theme is golf.
I can do that.
The theme is golf.
The theme is golf.
I'm not picking Happy Gilmore because I would get a great score.
I don't mean the theme being golf like in the content of the movie, but we're trying to hit the lowest score. Like in golf.
Okay, never mind. I retract my comments.
Not like you watch, what was that dude? Golf.
Golf.
Yeah, we're not watching that crap. Although that might score pretty well if you're going for a low score, because that's pretty terrible. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's look at the leaderboard, where we're at right now. Rob is still in the lead though. Oh gosh. What if we do? No,
Eric, you might have to change your pick. Are you going to pick another?
I love. Yeah, I think I might love whatever Eric's got cooking for us.
He's got cooking.
I do have something cooking. Should I tell you all about it?
Please do.
Yes.
Okay, so we've been watching Roddy Piper, and we've been talking about his acting chops, and we are, we're kind of judging the man before we know his story. So my pick here, and let me see if I did this right, is the A&E biography, WWE Legends, Rowdy Roddy Piper. So we will hear from his wrestling, co-workers and friends and whatnot about what kind of guy he was in the ring and also out of the ring. And I think that might help us understand Hell Comes to Frogtown and They Live a little bit better. So we're kind of going a completely different angle on this, because Roddy Piper is, he's a guy, he's a man that was in these movies, and we see him and let's know his story. I don't know what y'all think of that.
Where can we watch it?
We're gonna watch it.
I'm excited. I haven't seen this. I've watched a couple of the WWE Legends.
This is biography. Yeah.
And where can we watch it though?
Where can we watch it? The lovely thing is you've got some options, because A&E apparently plays fast and loose with their WWE biography series, because you can watch it on their website for free. I think it's got some commercial breaks in it. Or A&E's channel on YouTube is just like, here's the A&E biography, Rowdy Roddy Piper in all of its glory. Give it a watch. If you have cable that has, or some sort of streaming TV that has A&E, you might be able to find it on demand, or you could just constantly watch A&E hoping that it comes on one day. That's always an option. I don't think there's physical media of this, because it is pretty new, relatively new. So it's kind of in a from a post. So it'll be pretty recent, relevant information on everything. So we'll kind of get the story of how he got to Frogtown and what he lived like. Get it? See, I was trying to do, but anyways, so go check out the longest title ever, A&E biography, WWE Legends, Rowdy Roddy Piper, on YouTube.